Booze and boards, boards and booze. Bad guys at large, it's bad news. No beer this time, so we won't lose. We found their lair, they'll pay their dues. The town is saved, so now we booze. Booze and boards, boards and booze. With Mickey and Jeb. Come sail away, come sail away.
They're on an ocean, not a river.
On a river.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you could say it was the River Styx. Get it? Oh, see what I did there?
Oh my god.
See, I turned your bad thing into good.
A worse thing.
No, it's good.
Alright, so today we've got The River for you. And it is a Days of Wonder game, which is a company that Mickey enjoys a lot of their games and owns a lot of them.
I do.
I enjoy their games as well, but I don't own as many of them as Mickey does.
Yeah, they're almost an automatic buy for me unless the theme's really, really bad. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, if Days of Wonder's listening, so my Yamatai got flooded. So, if you
want the river?
No, it wasn't by the river. There was a river in my basement. So, if you want to send me a new one, I only got to play it once. I'm crying.
That was actually a fun game.
I know it was, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It was like, that was like a thinker.
It's on our list to do.
But I don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Alright,
anyways,
so Days of Wonder, it is 2 to 4 players,
Yes.
8 and up, and 30 to 45 minutes.
And it is a worker placement game.
Yes.
So, and again, like Jeb said, Days of Wonder, worker placement, instant buy for Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
And Days of Wonder, like, they never let you down with components. They're just, the stuff is just always good. The artwork's always good. The components are always good.
It seems like the games are always solid when we play them.
I agree. I think some people would say it's probably like maybe stuff is too similar, don't like the theme. If you've looked at some of the reviews about about this game, players are, I think the biggest complaint is a lot of players are saying this is too simple. And that's what I've seen. I don't know if you've even looked, but yeah, I pay attention to it. I actually sat down when Jeb and I were at PAX Unplugged this year and played a game with somebody that didn't know how to play the game, so that was an experience. But anyways,
after we read the rules, we were like, how did you not...
After me and the other guy grabbed the rules and read some of them ourselves, I got an idea for how the game was going to play, so I ended up buying it. We've had it for a little bit on the shelf, but it plays... It's relatively simple. It plays pretty quick, and so that's why you get a review of it, because a lot of our games are so freaking massive that we need 4 hours to tell you how to play it. Yep. So anyways, this it's definitely one of those, you're just trying to get victory points. Mm-hmm. I feel like the worker placement thing, although definitely a base worker placement, there's some nuances that are definitely different because you are trying to kind of like a tableau type of thing going on in front of you. You still have hidden victory points, and you're kind of up against the clock with your opponents on when the game is going to end. So there's a decent amount to pay attention to without getting overwhelmed, in my opinion, because there's only the 2 endgame conditions.
Yeah, and there's no direct attacking between players like some games do. The most that you can mess with other people is taking resources or taking tiles.
Or blocking a spot.
Yeah, that's
and
that's normal work placement.
Right. No, and
but there's here's a mission card that you can't do.
It's all indirect tactical stuff.
Yep.
If you're trying to play cutthroat or whatever. I don't know how well that works unless you're neck and neck. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, it's like you're really focused on what can I do best with what I have, more than what the other player is. Because if you're not paying attention to yourself and what you can get, I feel like what we just talked about is really towards the final rounds of the game, and it's like it's neck and neck. This is my only chances to hope that he can't get this, and I'm just gonna put this there and hope for the best. Because I'm in a position where it's like I can't do anything anymore. Yep. but now we're getting into strategy. So whatever. So it's 2 to 4 players, 8 and up, which I don't know if you already said.
I said
I feel like 8 is probably like actually kind of spot on this.
Yeah, because it's not. I don't think you have to actually read anything. The only thing that might be a little difficult are the tiles that are in game victory conditions. You just have to explain.
Yeah, there's just. You're gonna have to explain them for anybody. So
Right.
it's certainly a concept that a younger person could get. I'm actually surprised that they went that low because I usually they crank them up too
10,
too
11
high
or something.
in my opinion. But this is kind of spot on, I think. So I guess we will be back with
components, explain gameplay,
and a 3-player
game, and then our review. So
yep, with permanent guest star Gary.
yeah.
He doesn't get to be a guest star anymore, so he's permanent guest star.
He's ranked up.
Yeah,
I guess.
he's ranked up. We'll probably never get him on camera, but anyways, he plays games with us, so we don't care. All right, so we'll be back in a minute.
All right, so we're back with the game components for the river, and as you can see in front of you, this is the main board, which everybody's going to be sitting around, and that's where all the action happens. It is double-sided. Mickey flipped it over to the 2-player side.
But I flipped it over so it's upside down to you. Anyways,
Yep.
So there's 3 and 4-player symbol here, and then if I flip it the correct way, there is a 2-player symbol here. So side of the board matters. We're going to show you 3 to 4-player because that's what we're going to play.
All right, so let's slide this down a little bit and show them the components that a player is going to receive to play the game. So the first thing is the double-sided river board. Yep, that's it, Mickey.
Thanks.
So,
There's one side, and there's another side. And if you're wondering, look, there's the 2-player side, and there is the 3 and 4-player side. No, indicated by dice face.
they also receive a boat of their color. So this one, you can see the meeples on the board are black. So you are going to look for the black ship.
There's the 4 ships: black, yellow, blue, green.
And then you are also going to get 5 pioneers of that color.
And since that's the black colored board, we will bring the black colored meeples.
Alright, so that is what players are going to get in the game. Other components are the resources, which are kind of how you build stuff.
And for resources, you have brick.
Clay.
As Jeb would say, brick.
Yeah. A Pez.
We have rocks.
Stone. Oh, God. I know what you're going to do.
We have logs.
Wood. Well, I don't know. Wood is kind of funny when you... And then the whole last one.
And, as Jeb calls them through the entire episode, sheep. Which are turkeys.
And their food.
And, last but not least, first player token, or I should say, for Jeb's sake, boat.
Yeah, that's what it is to me.
Okay.
Okay, next up are the terrain tiles. There are 6 different kinds. There's desert, badlands, forest, meadow, mountain, and then mixed terrain. And we're not going to show you all.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, okay.
There's one.
That one's the mountain.
There's one.
Badlands.
There's one.
Forest?
Yes. And the desert.
Desert.
So, disregard the little symbols in the middle. What you're looking at is the backgrounds and how we're determining what they are. That has a desert background, that has a forest background, that has a mountain background, and I forget what the last thing Jim said was. What was the last one? And the Badlands
and then
background.
The meadow tokens, you probably want to show them that one,
okay,
are the ones that are like one-time effects or in-game effects.
Yes. Sorry, there was one more. Meadow token.
And then I don't know if you have a mixed token to show them, but it's kind of split vertically.
Forgot about those. We're going to find one for you people. We're going to find one. We got one. We got one. Not in this pile. We got one. We got one. Ta-da! Split tile.
Yep, and that's Mountains and Badlands.
Yes, it is.
Alright. Next up are the bonus tokens, which are the circular tokens with numbers on them.
So basically these are victory points.
And then on the back, they are all the same, so they can be flipped face down during the game and you won't know what number they are.
Yes, they all look like this on the back.
Yep.
Also notice that some of them have a couple pips on the bottom. Those come into play only for a 2-player game. The way it's worded in the rule book is you take those out just for a 2-player game.
You only play a 2-player game with
them. You don't... yeah,
Right.
That was bad wording on my part. You take them out and you only use those. And I said it a lot longer than the way that Jeb said, which was much more better. Unlike the English that I just used in that sentence. And the beer of today is Tropic Canyon by Heavy Seeds, made right here in Maryland. I think.
We're not even through the components.
Doesn't matter. I think it's made in Maryland. Baltimore. Yeah, found it.
And then the last component are the building cards.
Whoop.
This is going to be a long recording.
Oh, this is like Dice Tower.
Oh no, please don't. Oh. I can't stand watching that.
Oh, I love watching it. I just keep thinking to myself, who's picking that up?
Usually Jeb.
That's my game. I don't want you touching my pieces because you'll break them like you did the castle.
Can't argue with that. Alright, so that's everything for components, so we will be back with setup. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do for setup is...
I know!
What, Mickey?
Put the board in the middle of the table.
Oh wow, that's exactly the wording for it.
Got it right.
Oh, you messed up on the relevant side.
Close. That was so close.
So we're going to record a 3-player game, so Mickey actually has it on the right side. Next up, each player is going to take their matching set of components.
And obviously your player board won't be so close to this board, but for purposes of this recording, we will set up one of the players so that you guys can see it.
You also get the boat of your color.
And you can just put that to the side somewhere.
And you place 4 of your pioneers on your boat, and the final one on the second round spot.
Come sail away, come sail away.
Come sail away with me. Yep.
They don't want to hear that.
I know they don't. I'll have to release some karaoke videos.
No.
Did you make sure your player board is on the right side?
I did. 3-4.
Good job. Alright, next up you're going to shuffle the terrain tiles and put them face down on the matching spot of the main board. And they provide 2 spaces.
There is a lot of terrain in this game. So...
we are only just going to put out...
No, we're going to show them all.
Oh, okay.
Because... why not? Because we want you to see how big these piles are and how different your games will be each time, because there's a lot. Oh.
Jeez.
What?
I don't even remember that many.
Yeah, there's a lot. So you can't complain about the amount of variety that this thing has.
Alright, you are going to draw enough terrain tiles to cover the spots featuring the setup symbol and matching the number of players on the board. So as you can see, there are...
or not.
Oh yeah,
Might
it is
not be
kind of
able to
tiny, but there are 3 white pips under these 6 boxes, and then 4 white pips under these 2.
And when Jeb says that there's not 3 pips under each square.
Right.
There's a 3 pip thing and then kind of like a little light line. If you saw the board, you would understand what they were trying to do, and then these last two spaces both have 4 pips under it. But the starting spaces are the ones with the cubes.
Yep.
So you do everything.
So we're doing a 3-player game, so we only want to look at the spaces with cubes under the 3 pip.
Right. And so when you set up the game for the however many players, there'll always be, for the start, there's going to be 1 extra than the number of players.
Yep. Alright, next up you're going to shuffle the building cards and put the deck on the rightmost island of the main board, which has a building spot that matches the backs of the cards.
Okay.
Alright, then you will draw and place one of those cards on each face-up space on the island, so there's 4 of them. Next, you're going to place resources on the corresponding islands, depending on the player count, and it actually shows how many next to the pips. So,
yeah, so this gets 13 or 10. So 3, 7, 8, or 8, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I counted right. And then the food gets 3.
4.
4? I don't know where I was looking at.
I think you were looking at the
Probably.
pips.
And then
10 wood and 10 stone.
2, 3, 6. These are hard to grab. And how many stone? 10 of those
10.
too.
Yep. It looks like the 3 main resources are 10 each. And then you're going to take the remainder of each of those that aren't used and just put them back in the box because they won't ever come into play.
Right. Which brings an important point that Jeb just brought up. The resources are 100% limited in this game.
Yes.
Which makes sense on why they tell you how many put to start with, because if they're gone, they're gone.
Alright, next up you're going to take the bonus tokens, and in a 2-player game you would only use the ones with the 2 pips on them, but since this is a 3-player game we're using everything. What you're going to do is separate them into 2 piles. One pile has all the numbers and one pile has all the zeros, which are technically numbers, but I'm just saying that to cover my butt.
Okay, whatever, Mr. Math. Mr. Rocket Scientist, for real? That doesn't do rocket science?
I used to.
Oh, why is Mickey separating these like this, Jeb?
Because the key for this is that you want to put the highest number on top, going downwards in the stack. So
descending order
yeah.
is the word that he's looking for. I mean, he's a rocket scientist. He's just not that smart.
Drinking has made me forget a lot.
Alright,
so Mickey did that, and he puts it on one of the spots, and then the other spot is for all the zeros. And then the last thing you do for setup is to randomly choose a player to become the first player, and then you give them the boat first player token.
And you are ready to play. So now that we're all set up,
we can
jump right into how to play.
Yep. So the object of the game is pretty much getting the most victory points. This game, however, there is a preliminary turn, which is somewhat like setup, or part of setup. So let's talk about that real quick. So before the game actually starts, each player is going to select one of the beginning terrain tiles that you had placed there. So it starts with the player to the right of the first player and then goes counterclockwise. Each player is going to take one of those face-up ones, and the next one would do the same until there's only one left, which nobody can claim, and that gets removed from the game.
Right, so let's pretend there's 2 other players in the game. I don't get to go first, so Jeb is going to pick for one of those players, and then Jeb's going to pick for the other player. And then Mickey is going to choose for himself, and these immediately go on to the first slot on your board.
Yep, the top left.
Yes.
Because you kind of have to imagine the...
You place these tiles, you don't get to put them wherever you want, in the flow of the river.
Yep.
That's why it's called...
Oh, the river.
Thanks, Jeb. A little slow over here.
I said I'm a rocket scientist, not a river
Trying to
scientist.
cue you up, and you can't even do that.
I was going to say, if you flip around the board real quick, just to show them, when everybody's sitting around the board...
You want me to flip this way? Keep going? Keep
Yeah.
like this?
Yep. So the water actually matches up with that, so it's kind of thematic of the flow, like going top down, you know what I mean?
If you say so, buddy.
That's what the art style looks
Okay.
like. But anyway, we have it the other way so you can actually see what we're talking about.
I think he's making crap up, but that's cool.
All right. And once all of these are gone, you are going to draw and reveal enough tiles to cover all the spots on the island corresponding to the player count. So you don't, from now on, these squares are just ignored. So since it's a 3-player game, we're going
all
to
6.
flip these over. So 1, 2. Wow, lots of victory point stuff there.
Ooh. That's a rough
Yikes.
start.
We did not shuffle that well.
That's alright.
Alright, so, and then that is the end of the preliminary turn. So, it's pretty much getting everybody set up with one tile.
Yep.
Alright.
So, once that part's done, we are set up.
Yep. So now you can begin the game. So the flow of the game, it takes place over several rounds, starting with the first player and just going clockwise. Each player takes their turn, and then once they're done, the next player goes. When all players' boats are empty, the round ends, and you clean up, and then you begin a new round, and just keep repeating that until the the end game condition has been.
And what would those end game conditions be, Cheb?
So if you notice on the right side of your board, there are 5 circles. Each time you build a building, you're going to put a building under it and a thing on top of that. So once you build 5 buildings, that triggers the end game condition.
So when you build a building, a card's going to go over there, and one of these is going to go over here, face down, so people don't know how many points you are. Yes, you don't know how that happens yet. But in terms of end game conditions, if you run all 5, that's one of the end games.
Yep. And the other end game is if somebody puts their 12th terrain tile down on their board, then that triggers the end game condition. So, on a player's turn, the first thing you may do is if you may trade 3 resources that you have for food. We haven't really gotten into anything, but just keep that in mind that at the beginning of your turn, there's like a mechanic that just lets you trade in any 3 resources for 1 food token.
And why do you want food? Food's wild. It equals anything. And there are actually a couple cards that require food.
Yeah. So if you decide to do that, do it at the beginning of your turn. After you decide whether or not to trade in resources for a food, you are going to take one of your pioneers from your boat and place them on a spot on the main board. Once you have placed them there, you take the action corresponding to that spot.
Okay. So, spots on the board. These are spots on the board. An important thing to note about spots.
Yep.
This one is pretty self-explanatory. You can put your color on one of those spots.
Each color has 2 spaces.
And each has 2 spaces.
Yep.
If a color is not being played, that does not mean you get to place on the missing color. It's just dead. Okay? This might be very hard to see. There are a couple symbols that have the picture of the meeple, and on his belly portion it has the infinity symbol. That means any number can be placed there, so multiple people can go to this spot. I'm just going to keep going right down the road here. Yep. This space has 1, can take 1 meeple.
Yep.
This space can take 2. This space, all of the, all of the regular resources have 2 spaces. The food resource has an infinity mark. And then the card, the building spaces, has 2 spaces. Okay, so now you're going to go on. Are we going to get into
that
what
was
the spaces
exactly what the next thing was.
See, I can read his mind. Okay, so what does each space do? All right, Jeb's going to read the name of the space, and then we will describe it to you.
All right, claim a terrain tile.
Which
Come on down.
All right. Okay. So this is these are the tiles. Obviously, this is the space that has specific spots for your own color. When you place a pioneer there, I place it on my color, and then I select any of those tiles that I want, and then I immediately put them in the next available space on my board. One important thing to note is that once a tile is bought, the market, or whatever you want to call it, does not get refilled. It doesn't get refilled until the cleanup part of this game. So if I bought this, I would take this and put it in the next spot on my board.
You have to keep the order of placing on your board.
Yes. And it's very important because, which we'll get into, things can be moved around, and the way the tiles are placed are actually worth points at the end of the game.
Yep.
Okay, so next spot, Jeb?
I was going to say some of these are instant effects, so you need to look in the back of the book. Mostly the meta ones, they're either instant effects or in-game effects, and usually the ones with the victory point symbol are the in-game ones. So.
Right. While we're talking about symbols, since the tiles are basically what has symbols, real quick, like Jeb said, instant symbol, victory point at the end of the game symbol. Any of the resources that you see in a circle means that resource gets produced during the producing phase. And we don't have a very good example because those are all metals.
Your barn.
Right. On your board. So here, this one produces a brick. This one produces a wood. And your barns are storage. Okay, so that means that's where you actually keep your resources. Only barns can hold resources, unlike Mickey tries to do, and put them on various spots on his board to cheat for a win and still lose the game.
So Mickey placed his meeple. So the next player was going to place there, so let's just say they placed there and took one, and then Green placed there and took one, and now it's back to Mickey. So he gets to place one.
All right.
And let's do another spot.
Okay, Jeb, let's do another spot. What's next on the list?
Let's do the resource stuff, since you don't have any resources.
Okay. So, the resource spots.
For this action, when you place a meeple there, you cannot place a meeple if you already have 12 tiles on your board. That is a rule.
Oh. Yeah, you can't burn. You can't... If there was some reason why you would want to, like to block another person or something like that.
Which you actually couldn't because...
Right. I mean, it's...
I guess to steal the...
That would be very, very, hard. It's... First of all, it's towards the end of the game where that would be even possible. And second of all, it's probably pretty difficult. But it is important to note that you can't do it just to screw somebody over. That's the only reason I could think of why you would want to do that anyhow.
Right. All right, so produce resources.
Okay, so this section is all the resources of it. We will come back to this later. The clay, the wood, and the stone all have 2 spaces, but if you'll notice the first space in each one, where I guess you don't have to take the first space if you don't want to, but when you take it, it gives you a bonus of +1 resource.
And I believe that's only in the 3 to 4 player game. The 2 player side doesn't have that.
Okay, so let's say I place in the clay and I put it on the +1. I look at my board and I count up how many spots I have that produce clay. And in my case, I have 1, 2, plus the bonus 1. So I would take 3 of these, and then I have to place them in my barns. So I have a barn here, and I have a barn here, and I have a barn here. And then, so I still have 3 more barns for resources later on in the game.
if Mickey had all of his barns full and he placed on the brick and got 3 of them, then he has the option to get rid of resources in barns to place the newly acquired resource.
So yeah, you can swap out if you're overflowing with stuff that you need. And that works the same way for these 3 spots. And then the food, the only difference is that it has the infinity sign, so more than 2 can go there if the occasion arises.
But there are no tiles that actually have the symbol to produce food, so when you place there, you only get 1 food.
Right, you just take the 1 food. And notice that there's only 4 of them anyways, so it's highly unlikely that there's going to be like tons and tons of people there anyways. But it is good to know that you can put multiple.
And there is also a rule that says you can only choose this action if you at least get 1 resource of the type where you're placing. So you can't do it to screw people over. Another player would go there, and then one goes there. Say they took their resources. And then it's back to Mickey. Let's do build the building.
Okay. Alright, so the build a building.
We need to say Mickey somehow magically has 2 wood there, say.
Okay. So I take a pioneer and I set it in the build a building spot. Now the build a building spot actually has 2 options. There is build one of the cards over here, which is this side, or this side with a card that's face down and has the little -1 box, means that you have the card in your hand. We haven't talked about that yet, but that's what this spot is for. It lets you put these cards in your hand for later use. So we're just going to talk about this one side right now, okay? So this means that I can build one of these buildings over here by spending the resources that I have available to me. So I have 2 bricks and 2 wood because Jeb magically gave me some...
2 magic wood.
Some magical ones.
When you spend them, they go back to the
supply.
Resource pile.
And then I take the card, I put it under my victory track and hide the victory points because the victory points are secret. I get to take the top tile of the victory points and I will hide that too, so that's secret.
The highest number
Right.
in the victory pile.
So that one is completed, and that is my turn. However, if I did have a card face down in front of me, I could use this side of the build, and it kind of works the same way, except you get a little bit of an advantage. That's -1 means that I can build, I just had one off the top of the deck, but that means I can build this card, and I can choose any of those and reduce it by 1. So yeah, I could make it so I didn't need any stone whatsoever on that card. Okay, or I could do 4 instead of 5 clay, or I could do 2 instead of 3 wood. But keep in mind that it's not a reduction to each thing on the card. It's a -1 to whatever you pick, just 1 resource.
Alright, and then since we already talked about constructing a building, let's hop over to reserving a building.
Okay,
which is pretty much, I'll let Yellow do it.
Okay, Yellow's going to do that.
He places his meeple there, and then of the
Stuff
the
that's
face
left.
You can take one and put it face down in front of you like Mickey did, and the rule is you can only have 2 face down cards in front of you.
Right, so you can't hoard them, and basically, if it's not clicking with you yet, basically it's just like, hey, I know I'm going to be able to build this in a future turn. Maybe it's not even the next turn, but you're like, oh, I want that.
Yep.
And so you put it down face down in front of you. Once you have the resources on your turn, you place a meeple here, and then you can build the card out of your hand at a reduced cost of 1 resource.
Alright, next up is green, and we'll have him take an action that you can easily see. The first player token. All you do is when you place your meeple there, you take the first player token and put it in front of you. So you are now first player for the next round.
In this game, if you're familiar with some similar games to this, usually there's something that goes along with taking the first player token, at least a little something. There literally is nothing else other than taking that first player token. Of course, there's only one spot for it, which is good, I guess. You can't have a battle between it, but there is nothing else. And yes, it actually could be that important if you know, like, if you can see something on the board, or if you know there's only so many resources left, or you want to end the game. There's multiple reasons why you would want to do it, but I wouldn't say that it's like you're going to want to do it every turn or anything like that.
Right.
So but the option is there to steal that.
Okay, and then before we talk about the last space, which is swapping tiles, we should tell you a little bit more about tiles. So let's say throughout the game, Mickey starts acquiring tiles in this order. So he got that one, and then next up he got this one, which...
You're going to make me get rid of my resource.
Oh, what? Don't you have a barn that's open somewhere?
I do, but that's rude.
And then the next one is...
You gave me 3 meadows.
This?
You wanted to?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh,
no.
You made me exit. Oh, you
okay,
exit.
Yep, so on your board there are 4 spaces that have an X over a meeple. And when you do that, we'll get to it later. It's at the end of the round, so just remember there's something special there. What? So you take that one, and then take that one, and I think that's good enough. Because now, if Mickey takes the swap tile action, which is down here, he would put his meeple on that spot. And now he can swap 2 tiles on his board. Now, Mickey, why'd you do that?
Because if in a horizontal line...
Vertical?
In a vertical line... I don't even know what I'm saying. Drop a canyon. You get bonus points. So, as long as you have 2, you're going to get bonus points at the end of the game. If you get another one that matches in the 3rd column, you get even more. And you'll notice that it tells you here. So, if this and this match, I get 2 victory points. If this, and this match, I get 6 victory points. Okay, so the kind of tile that you have matters. And that's what the swap tile spot is for.
Yep. Alright, so let's say everybody has placed their meeples. So let's throw a couple over there and a couple there. So, alright, everybody's placed their meeples. Nobody has meeples left on their boats. So now it is the cleanup phase. So like I said, when all boats are empty, the round is over, and before you start a new round, you have to do the following. You are going to remove any remaining tiles, terrain tiles from the island, and then draw tiles to replace them. So those 3 are gone.
Right. So anything that didn't get bought gets gone. Wow, it couldn't be more night and day.
Alright. So we got those replaced. If you cannot, if the piles are empty when you're trying to replace, you can shuffle the discard to remake a pile.
Wow, people would have to be really efficient.
I know, right?
Well, we haven't played with 4 players, so maybe it is possible. Anyways.
Next, you're going to leave the remaining building cards in their spots and draw new ones to replace the ones that were either built or reserved. So in our case, there were 2 spots that were empty, so you refill them. Each player is going to then take their pioneers back from the main board and put them on their boat. And then the first player starts a new round.
Wait, we didn't check for dead meeples.
Important. On the river board tiles, there are 4 framed terrain spots, which we talked about. If you have covered any of these in the previous round, one of your pioneers decides to settle there, and you are going to place one of your pioneers from the boat onto that shape, lying down,
like
and
that.
It's gone for the rest of the game.
Right. It's important to note that that doesn't happen until this phase. So
Yep.
during all the cleanup / resetting is when you do that meeple. So when Jeb was making believe that I was acquiring these tiles, the second that I place this, I don't lose the meeple. But the second that I do place it, at the end of that round, I am going to lose that meeple. All right, and so there's a couple reminders on your board. Like I said, this is a reminder of where you actually place the meeple, but it is also, there's an arrow from the square that has that effect. So the effect is right there. Same over here. There's the effect. There's an arrow pointing to the guy that you lay it down on, and these last two spots do the same thing. Okay.
Oh, but Mickey, what about that guy that we placed on the right at the beginning of the game?
Ooh, this guy, he's waiting for a party. And so, this guy, if you remember, when we build, we put the cards underneath, and then we set a victory token on it. So in that case, if I built a card, and I put it under the second spot, I take the victory token, put it on, and then I immediately get the Pioneer, and he goes into my boat. And it is available immediately that round.
Yep.
Okay, so you don't there's no waiting period for it. All right?
Like most games have.
Right, so a lot of games make you wait, or or it comes to you during the cleanup phase, or however you want to say it. But in this game, as soon as you build that second building, you get the bonus meeple.
Yep. So that's everything you can do on your turn. So you would just start a new round and then do it again. As we mentioned, if somebody has built 5 buildings or places 12 terrain tiles, that triggers the end condition of the game. What you're going to do is complete the remainder of the round, resolve one last cleanup phase, and then proceed to final scoring. So you finish out the round, and you have to do the cleanup because some victory tiles are based off of that. So
yep. So you, like Jeb said, follow all the normal procedures, kind of put everything back to where you are done with the last round, and then you'll go into the scoring phase. We can't go over every single scoring thing on the tiles, but in general, we can tell you how the game is scored, so you have an idea of, a little bit of strategy.
And on the last 2 pages of the book, or the very back of the book explains all of them.
Yeah, all the tiles.
Yeah, so
because there are a lot of them have to do, they chain off each other, or give you bonuses for this and that and the other. But we're going to tell you the basic victory point things that you can get.
All right, so for final scoring, each player is going to do this for their own board to figure out what their final score is.
Right.
So the first thing is you get 1 victory point for every 3 resources of any type that you have on your board.
Right. So if I have this and this, I get 1 victory point. Any overage is nothing.
If you have 1 or 2,
nothing. All right. So it's every 3, not matching, just literally every 3 of a resource. Okay.
All right. Next, you're going to look at your columns of terrain tiles, and you're either going to get 2, 0, 2, or 6 points depending on how you built your land.
Right. So in the case of my tile right now, because I did that swap thing, I have these 2 match and these 2 match. This does not. This is a solo one. So you could be like, oh, well, that matches itself, right? No, it has to be at least 2. Okay, like Jeb just said. Okay, so it's either 2, or you get 6. Those are your only options. So I would have gotten 2 for this and 2 for this. So I got 4 victory points for those 2 columns. I would get nothing for this because they don't match, and I get nothing for this because that one didn't get filled in. Jeb just made a pretend move here, and gave me another meadow. So I have 3 that match in that column. So I would have the 6 victory points for this column, the 2 victory points for this column, nothing for this column, and nothing for this column.
Yep. Just showing that one.
Yep.
All right, next, you are going to get any points from meadow tiles on your board.
Okay, and that's what Jeb was talking about. These, we're not going to do all the bonuses here, but like this one is bonuses for stones, this one's bonuses for mountains, this one's bonuses for meadows, and you can read exactly how they're worded, like Jeb said, in the back of the rule book. It's very, very, very clear.
Yeah, like the meadow one that Mickey's has, 1 point for every meadow.
Right.
So
some of them max out, like the stone.
Yep. And then there are some one-of effects where you get like a bunch of resources, and then that tile's dead for the rest of the game. So
you get victory points for every building you built. So for whichever ones of these that you took, you get that many victory points. And then for whatever building, it has victory points on it. So you're going to add up your personal tokens and your personal buildings. They get added to your score. Yes, you could end up with zeros. Why do I want a 0? Well, there are tiles in the in the terrain things, whatever you want to call them, that do have bonuses
for how many tiles or how many buildings
for the zeros. Besides that, if you're building one of these things and there are a lot of victory points and there's no good points left, tough luck. You want to build it anyways and get as many as you can. Sorry it's a 0, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
So it might actually help you in terms of, I need to get the game ended before anybody can get ahead of me. So there is a reason for it.
Yep.
All right.
So that is everything for points. So the person who has the most victory points wins. And if it's a tie, it is a shared victory. There are no sub-conditions in this game.
Right. Just to let you know, when we get into the game, we've played it a couple times, and both the games I felt like were night and day. So it is there is a good variety. The little bit that we've played, we've got to see some pretty extreme differences in the way the game went, which kind of makes me think more and more about different strategies and what to pay attention to when it comes out. And I think you guys will see the same when you watch us. You'll only see the one game, but just take our word for it. You set it up again, you're most likely going to have almost something totally different than what you played the first time, which is a good thing. Just wanted to point that out. If you're watching this and either you're like, that looks dumb, or this is going to be the same thing, or whatever, I feel like, trust me, it's not going to be. There's a lot going on in the simplicity of the game. Alright, so we'll be back in a minute with...
3-player game?
Yep, me, Jeb, and Gary.